Okay, good afternoon, Gauri. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Rajiv. What about you?
So far, so good. I think that's the best phrase for me. Things are opening up. I think everything seems to be brightening up professionally for all of us. So I think you being in HR, me being in the learning and development OD space, we belong to the same fraternity. For
Yes.
the market was not great in the last 1 year from a corporate side for you and from an entrepreneurship side for me. But I think things seems to be getting positive. So let's hope for the
Yes.
best.
Yeah. So maybe we have reached a good stage and we will be moving to great
Absolutely, we should.
now.
That's a lovely way of putting it across. Superb. So I'm so happy to have you on this event. Before we get started on the book of the day, let me have the honor of introducing you to the audience. All right. Okay. So good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whichever part of the world you are going to be sitting when you listen to Gauri. All of you attended Leaders and Libraries Season 1, and you had 33 powerful leaders come and talk on 22 great books. And the success of that event pushed us as an organization to start season two. And we have 40 illustrious leaders from the world of business, HR, OD, and top management going to come and talk on 40 powerful books. That is massive when it comes to learning for young minds who listen to leaders and libraries on multiple social platforms. Today, we have yet another guest with us, Miss Gauri Das. Let me have the honor of introducing her to all of you. Quite a very impressive page as I open the LinkedIn here. She is a strategic HR leader with over 14 years plus of experience, currently working as vice president and head of HR for an organization called India Factoring and Financing Solutions. It is an NBFC as an organization. They help people in terms of their financial strength to be improved. Now, what is interesting is she is also somebody who's got multiple awards under her kitty. Let me read a couple of that she has on her profile. She is one of the HR 100 awardee under 40. She's also a TAPI and Economic Times Young Leader in the world of HR awardee. She's also the LinkedIn Person of the Year 2020. That is massive. And she's somebody who's regularly seen as a passionate speaker on multiple forums. And she talks on a lot of things from the area of resilience, knowledge, HR, tech, and multiple areas of her own interest. She's also somebody whom I understand mentors students and professionals, which means academia and corporate as well, and supports them through their motivational talks in their own growth journey. I think that's a great, great work that she does. And above all that, she's also a book lover, which is what makes me pretty happy to talk to her today. I'm so happy to have you, Gauri. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation and joining the force. I formally welcome you on board on this event.
Thank you so much, Rajiv, for this lovely introduction. And I'm so, this concept itself of learning through books, this has always been with me since my childhood. But
Mhm.
the way you have created the whole framework around it, it's amazing. So kudos to you. And thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm happy to be part of this second series.
Thank you so much, Gauri. Many HR people like you see value in the kind of work that I'm doing from books because it's not about the great work that the organization does, but I
Yes.
think the common thing that pull people like you and me together is the word called BOOK. And I think books have a tremendous impact on people, helping them to amplify themselves, expand themselves. I think that's where the value really comes in for organizations. So I'm very happy that you
Absolutely.
feel the same. So I'm all excited to get into the conversation. Before we get started and talk on this great book, and I was so happy that you picked this as one of the books for the event because it's been an all-time favorite for many, many book lovers, including me. I'm going to start with the first question. So, Gauri, tell me, how early did the association with books start for you?
It started very early, I think, when I started reading
Mm-hmm.
in the childhood, and it started with comics, Chacha Chaudhary and Diyu and Pinky, and then it moved on to Champak, and from there on many other books, but these were the basics.
Mm-hmm.
So even when I was not able to read, I would look at those pictures because I had elder sister and brother at home and they would read them. So I would also look at them, and then slowly it became kind of my first love. because Sabu would do something which would be extraordinary and I would just love it. So that's how I started. Then in college, it was all about Sydney Sheldon and Jeffrey Archer and Agatha Christie. And I think in third year of my engineering, I had my first brush with any management book.
Beautiful.
And since then, it has been a journey and it has been a source of learning. So it's now it's all about books and plus magazines also to keep yourself updated. Like you said, I speak in various forums. So if I don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
I will not be able to share my knowledge. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a great association and long, very long association.
Thank you for reminding Sabu and Chacha Chaudhary, जिनका दिमाग कंप्यूटर से भी तेज है, is what I remember these doing there, right? Great days, isn't it? Chacha Chaudhary's, Champaks, Chanda Mamas, Tinkles of the world. I think
Yeah,
these were lovely friends for us, and somewhere I feel the kids of the current generation are so tacked to the computers and
correct.
laptops and games. Not to sound offending them and their interests, but I think our days of growing with books were very interesting. They
Yes,
taught us so
absolutely.
much. Look at the Chataka tales in Panchatantra. I still vividly remember a couple of morals and stories that I got to know through those books, through animals, right? Lovely. Then Tintins of the world came in. We had then your Jeffrey Archers of the world and Robert Ludlums of the world and Famous Fives and Nancy Drews.
Yes.
All of them came in. I think it's a beautiful progression people like you and me had over our own journey. Thank you so much. It always takes me back nostalgically to the kind of books that I've read, and I still hold them. I've bound them, and I've kept all those tinkles which are still there with me.
Wow.
When my daughter sees that, I don't have 1 year old, I'll show you. She sees and it says 75 paisa. She's not able to believe that you get something for 75 paisa. I remember my father started off when it was 50 paisa at Tinkle and went on to 6 rupees 40 paisa. That was the cost is when I stopped buying Tinkle. So great time it was.
And that Reader Digest, which would be a
Yes,
subscription, and
absolutely.
parents would say we are spending good amount of money on this. Do utilize.
I know, I know. Somebody reading Reader's Digest means the family is little upper middle class. Interesting, lovely. So tell me, Gauri, as you moved on with the Chacha Chaudharys and Champaks of the world, moved on to the management books, leadership books, how did these books play a significant role in your own growth as a leader? And what is interesting for me is you come with 14 plus years of experience and you're already sitting as a vice president for an organization leading HR, which means you have definitely been on a fast track growth as a leader, if I can see you, right? Kudos to all the great work. I'm sure books have or must have played a significant role in this fast track growth. Tell us something about that.
Yeah, so I think what connects me to books and what brings me back to them all the time is one, I learn a lot from there because it's that I can be in US with one book, I can be in Fairyland with another book, and I can be anywhere. So it's kind of the culture. Just like if you read something which is talking about Japanese culture,
Mm,
even if it is a storybook, it talks about their culture. It tells you a lot. And
mm,
as we know, as a human resource professional, the most important thing is connecting with people. So when you are able to accept the diversity of thoughts and diversity of culture,
mm,
you are able to connect well. So this is one thing which connects well with
mm,
which gives me, I mean, kind of information or makes me open minded to connect with people.
mm,
Second is it's a lot of imagination. If you
uh,
are reading a fiction, it's kind of you can be anywhere, you can
yeah,
do anything. There's no limitation to it, and
correct.
that's where HR strategy sits in because you need kind of envisioning things. You need
Absolutely.
to have some imagination, and that
Mm,
also helps.
mm, mm,
Definitely, communication books add in a lot of value.
yeah.
And since childhood, if you continue to read them, you get to know. Even today, you and I get new words, right? And we look for them, and
Mm,
then we keep on improving our communication.
mm,
So these are some of the things for which I rely on books. And when it comes to HR books, like
mm,
talking about Dave Ulrich,
mm,
so whatever we studied in MBA was not up to the mark to the
mm,
requirement of today's world.
yeah.
But when you read They Will Rich, you really get to know what is required. I mean, even if the basic book, how HR structuring should be done, there should be four
Mm,
levels and all of it. That is also very important, and that's why he said as father of modern HR, because he talks something which is applicable today, not the archaic stuff that we learned in MBA.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, so that's how the learning, and that's how it has helped me grow as a leader.
Fantastic, fantastic. You know what I liked in what you said, Gauri, and thanks for bringing that thought. I've never thought about this. You spoke about reading diverse books, and your profession is about managing diverse people.
Yes.
So I think the word diversity associated to books and diversity to people, you kind of brought them together. That was a nice way of looking at it. I've not thought it from that angle. Thanks for pushing me to think that way. I think that's a beautiful connect that you brought between these two. And it's so important, right? Because when you read
Yes.
different books, different
Correct.
perspectives and authors, it just opens up our mind, right? And we can interact with any human resource on the planet from any function, any organization without any iota of bias. And that is what a true HR is all about, right?
Yes.
The nice connect that you brought. Thank you so much for that. That takes me to the next question is, among all the books, what made you pick this book? Why Good to Great by Jim Collins?
It's a great book, first of all. I think there are two, three things which I really love about this book. One is after reading this, you don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel in order to understand what is leadership all about. And that to level 5 leadership, we will come to it.
Yeah.
And second is this book talks about having great organizations, great leaders with personal humility.
Yeah.
And that is my most important value. So there is a connect there as well, that you are having, you are seeing, because it's like a lot of examples where the writer has brought up how personal humility has really helped organizations, people, and leaders, of course. So that's a great connect for me. And third, I am a data driven person, and this book is all about research,
Yeah.
5 years of research. So it's like amazing, because for me it's like anything else we can believe in, but if you don't have data, it's of no use. Intuition definitely helps, but up to a certain extent, and for me it's more about data. So that the book is totally based on research. And the most important thing is, they did not start with a hypothesis. This is what happens, and they were not trying to prove a point. They were trying to find out what happens, what goes in a great organization. So that's another thing, because many a times writer would have a fixed set of mind, and then they will put in those facts to prove that. But this is totally different. So these are 4 reasons why I love this book.
I don't know if you observed it, but the way you gave reasons for why you love the book was also data driven. You had 4 exclusive points. Why would you love this book? Which is very interesting, right? I think you're true. You're true because.
Yeah, like they say, no, in God we believe. Like everybody should bring data.
I know, I completely agree. Intuition plays a certain role, after which it's all about backing up with powerful data. And every chapter, I think Jim and his team brought graphs. Whenever he talks about the black box, that's beautifully shown with graphs of organizations globally performing, not performing, etc. Lovely book. So let's now delve into a couple of powerful concepts that Jim talks about. I'm going to talk about the first one, which is one of my all-time loved quotations, and I use it in all my workshops. Greatness is not a function of circumstance, but turns out largely to be a matter of conscious choice. And the very fact that you and me sitting today and attending this event and talking didn't happen by circumstance was a conscious choice. You had the choice to say no to this. I had the choice to not invite you, but we did the other.
And not even start the series.
Absolutely. Tell me, how do you interpret this phrase as a seasoned leader?
So for me, not only in career, but even in life, I think it's all about the decision that I take. I strongly believe that our decisions are our own choices, and they decide our direction. And another thing which I strongly believe is a strategy is only as good as its execution. If it is not executed well, then strategy is of no matter how good the strategy is. But if you are not executing, implementing it well, it would not give you any result. So these two things are definitely critical, that You decide what you want to do.
Correct.
And that's another concept from psychology, internal locus of control and external locus of control.
Right.
So I am somebody who believes that it's more about my choices, my decisions, my responsibility rather than external factors. So
Good.
that also connects very well here. And the third thing, I also believe that personal definition of happiness, greatness, fulfillment should also be involved here. So definitely there should be a conscious choice. There should be discipline, but I should also have my own definition, because what is good for you may not be good for me.
True.
Definitely not in context of this book, because they have proved, they had a parameter to say that this is good or this is great. But in personal life, when I relate this particular quote, I think that there should be a third dimension also, wherein we say that this is great for my eyes, that is great for your eyes, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. So these three things will definitely decide our journey of life, whether our careers are going up, down. It is all about these three things.
Fantastic. Tell us about one good decision which today in hindsight, when you look back, Gauri Das feels this was a great decision that paved your path for success. Could you tell us one of them?
So my engineering started because my brother was an engineer, and those days there was no aptitude test. I'm sure Rajiv, you can
Yeah.
relate.
Yeah.
And there was no way to find out who you are. Self-awareness also was not possible. Whatever you knew, and there was no social media to support us. So since he went for it, I also went for it. But within a year or two, I realized this was computer engineering, and I realized that I am not made to sit with machines. There's something beyond that I would like to do. Now, in third year of my engineering, there was a professor who shared about Dave Ulrich, and he said that modern HR is coming in, because that was the era of personnel management. He said, I look at looking at your qualities or your competencies, I think you can make a good HR leader. And I was like, whether it would happen, not happen, what is HR? I had never heard about, because my upbringing was in a very small village. So I did not have that kind of exposure as well. This definitely for this degree, I was in a city called Indore, but that I had a very limited exposure. There was no one else in my circle who I can reach out to and check out that what HR is and would I really make a good career there. But I went with him because anyways, I was not liking this. I was thinking there's something beyond. And here is somebody who is actually guiding me, mentoring me. So I went with that. And I started my career as HR, though at that time I was not having MBA in HR. It was only engineering degree that I had. But as luck would have it, I could start my career in HR, and then later on I acquired those degrees and certifications. So in hindsight, when I look at that I relied on this professor, I relied on his thought process. I am really happy that it was a conscious choice again, and a lot of discipline, because I did not have any even basic idea about HR, what you learn when you do your post graduation. And third, my definition of what is good.
I think great choice, because today it looks a great choice. That time it would have looked like a good choice beyond machines. But today, when you are leading so many people in the organization towards their own path of growth and their own path of journey of what they want to achieve as purpose in their life, and that's the job of an HR head. That's what you're doing in your organization. I think you must be a proud woman to think that that was a great decision that you took many years back, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So now it's kind of the definition of HR has also changed. So when I started was leave or attendance or keeping those records. But today when HR has become a business partner and especially strategic partner, and after COVID, definitely things have changed a lot. So I'm really happy that this is one profession where I am in, and this connect with people. Every day, every situation is a new situation, because human being is not machine. So whatever they come up with, it's different, totally different every moment. And that's where the challenge always remains. You never get bored, never a dull moment.
Lovely, and I like the way you said that. All right, so let's get to the next one. I like this the concept that he builds in of a build-up stage of an organization through breakthrough, that runaway that he described in the organization and his book,
Yeah.
right? What is your interpretation of that? And how should top leaders like you sitting at the hem of affairs, who have a balcony view of an organization, who manage the entire climate of an organization, whether above you or below you, how should people like you understand this build up to a breakthrough runway?
Yes. So for this, I fully rely on what Jim Collis has said in the book, that there are certain elements which are required when you're looking at build up to breakthrough. Number one is leadership. So for sure, having a level 5 leader, you may or may not have in the organization, but yes, leadership plays a critical role practically. Definitely, if you have somebody who is level 5, it's totally a different ball game, and the progress of organization would be like that. But even if you have somebody at level 4, leadership is going to play a critical role in this aspect.
Right.
Second is who is in the bus. So first who, then what. First you have to decide who all you are going to have with you, because right people at right place would yield right results. And many a times we have seen many organizations that the management was not very professional. That was one of the biggest reason of their failure. Or people were not aligned fully. They were not ethical. So that's critical aspect, and that's where our role becomes very important. And we don't rely only on that's again data comes, or scientific methods come in, that when you hire people, you don't fully rely on just one interview. You go for 10 more things to find out whether this is going to be a good fit or not. And I guess cultural fit is also an important criteria when it comes to values, culture, whether it is matching or not. So that's another thing. Then there should be an environment of openness, because if only one person is leading and everybody is fully relying on him, he may go wrong or she may go wrong. There are instances when you would know your boss is not right, but you would not speak up because there's psychological safety. Your views are not welcome. In some other organizations, I have seen that people would be allowed to say whatever they are saying, but ultimately they have to accept the facts. So, and that if leader is saying there's a lot of optimism, you will follow that. But that should not be the case. There should be a way where you discuss, debate, and then you reach to a conclusion. So that's another element. Hedgehog concept, it's beautifully explained in the book, and I fully rely on it. Do one thing which you are passionate about, which you can do the best, and which gives you economic energy. I mean, those denominators per person, what is the parameter? Per customer, what is the parameters? That becomes critical, because unless you measure it, you cannot improve it. So that's another important concept to be utilized, because you might diversify in various areas, but do you really have those competencies? Do you really have that knowledge in those areas? And that's how you are diversifying, or you are diversifying because there is a great organization, or the industry itself is doing very good. So you think you will be entering and you will be doing. That should not be the case. Discipline, like we discussed, so discipline of thoughts, action, people, that is another concept which I fully take from the book. And like I said, I personally also I rely so much on discipline, because I believe success comes only with persistent efforts. We read about this in this book also. There's a flywheel, and you need to keep pushing in a particular direction, then only it will take off. So that becomes another important criteria. And technology, I think there's some disconnect here in terms of technology, because when the book was written, it was not everything about technology. But after COVID, things have changed. I think I would rely too much on technology, and that would lead to transformation. The book also says something similar, but I think the reliance on technology today would be much more than how it happens. It had happened in the book. These are the things which I think would be required from build up to breakthrough.
Absolutely. I think you know what this concept is very beautifully explained by you. From all this entire boxes that he talks about, And you say there's a black box where there's an organization built up and there's a breakthrough. Tell me, Gauri, what is that one thing that you have always implemented in your HR team to create those breakthrough for organizations?
For me, it has been listening to people and having those views.
Hmm.
That has been a key area for me. And
Openness. Openness that you spoke about.
yes, openness. And I recently did my certification in design thinking. So
Mm-hmm.
5 years, 10 years ago, we were not thinking HR needs it.
Hmm.
But now we know HR really needs it because you need to look at the end user. You create a very beautiful handbook, but who's going to read it if and follow it basically if
Yeah.
it's not from them? So that's one thing which I have always relied on, that whenever I'm creating a policy, I would have functional heads and the one level down, because listening from the front, listening from the floor is very important, because
Yeah.
if you only hear the voices from the highest level, you will have a very filtered view.
So end of
So,
the day, they are going to use it, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And that's where listening to them very important. Focus groups and those kind of meetings become very
Yeah.
important.
True.
And cite an example, recent example. So during COVID times,
Hmm.
we were creating a handbook to be back to work,
Hmm.
because we are a non-bank and we come under essential services. So we were closed for a certain time, but then documents are required to be sent out. So people need to be in office.
Hmm.
Now, this I could have created on my own with my team, HR
Hmm.
team or admin team, but
Hmm.
I decided to go with functional heads and their one level down again.
Hmm.
And we could go to the details of reusable toilet seats also. I'm
Wow.
sure if I was doing alone with my team, we would not be able to reach that level. So that diversity of thoughts, openness, accepting their views, they will only speak if they say that their views are heard or at least acknowledged.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that has worked wonders for me.
That was quite granular. Huh? Going to that level, I think it
Yeah.
just makes it so inclusive, isn't it? Everybody would feel that there is HR which is really taking care of us and not just sitting there in the boardroom and talking about stuff which are not implementable. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I think it's a very powerful way of creating a breakthrough. And 2020 organization must have seen, and I've seen many organizations actually realizing the contribution that HR can make in driving business. Because I can tell this with my experience that HR seems to be one of the easy functions for people to do. I mean, I've had people coming and giving loose statements. HR में मौका है तो दे दो मैं join कर लेता हूँ. As if anybody
रंगोली तो
walking on the
बनाई.
road can become an HR person, because they think it's about क्या करना है, offer देना है, exit interview करना है, appraisal करना है. That's all your job is all about. Not realizing it's not that. It's about managing the entire human force of the organization. That the entire white elephant gets pushed only because of the people, or else
Yes.
the white elephant will just sit there on the table. You cannot move it by an inch. So that way, I think 2020, I'm very proud and happy that it has definitely earned and given that extra respect that HR always wanted from organization. That's been a great contribution of 2020 to HR from my side. That's my personal take.
Yeah, but I think it's still a long way to go,
Definitely,
because
definitely.
very few child professionals in, my circle, I see them learning business, and that's where the success starts from. If you don't know business, you would not be able to talk their language. You would not be able to support business with initiatives, those kind of initiatives which are really required. So I think business acumen is one thing which cannot be, its importance cannot be overstated.
I understand. I completely, absolutely agree to that. Super. So let's talk about this level 5 that you spoke about, right? Explain a little about what is level 5 leadership from your understanding, and how do leaders strive to reach that level? Why is it so important for all leaders to strive?
Yes. So leader five, level five. Let's start from level one, because level five should have everything
Hmm.
that level that goes into level one, two, three, and four. And in addition to that, there should be something.
Hmm.
So level one is about when we start our careers, we contribute individually,
Hmm.
and individual contributor role becomes a level one when done very well.
Hmm.
Level two, you become a team player. So if you are in HR, you have certain responsibilities towards finance. They need to
Hmm.
close the books and budgets and all of it. certain responsibilities towards admin, marketing, everywhere, and you are doing them well, thinking that my efforts matter not only for my department but for everybody, right? Level 3, you become kind of a manager, and you manage your own things, you manage within the group. Level 4 is where most of the senior leaders would be, and they will be able to drive a whole organization with a given purpose. Many of them would not be visionary, but they would be good executors. So if there's a vision and they have identified something, they would be able to pull it through.
True.
And then comes level 5, where you need all these qualities, but you need two more things, in my opinion, and which is professional will and personal humility. So the kind of leaders that we have seen, that once they exit, the organization is unable to survive because it is all about them. The qualities that I'm seeing, like we say, Mahatma Gandhi or Abraham Lincoln, is kind of level 5 leaders because they did not have anything for themselves. They were actually trying it for others. They were purpose driven, and the purpose was not their own self. Second, when it comes to taking credit, they look, about credit, they look out of the window. And when it comes to taking blame, they look in the mirror. So that is another important criteria. When they exit, do they create obstacles for second level because they did not mentor them well? Or second level is already ready? So I have seen some of those leaders who have created their second in line in such a way that the day they exit, next day onwards, everything is normal. Everything is smooth. You never will come to know that there's any change in the organization because this is how they have given it. And there are others who are extremely successful, but the moment they step out, you actually know there's a lot of mess inside because they were running everything based on their own charisma. They were not driven by the organization's objective or driven by achieving it for everybody. It was all about themselves, and this book cites a lot of example of such leaders who were driven by their own purposes, or who were in limelight more than focusing on the business. And there were others who were 11 companies who were actually, because all those 11 were having, there was level 5 leaders. Right. So for me, this is the definition of level 5 leader, and I'm fortunate to work with some of those.
And you fundamentally believe, from what Jim says, that every leader, irrespective of whether he or she is in level 1 or level 2, should strive to rise up to reach a level 4 as early as possible, right?
Yes, absolutely. And even level 5, because he also says that it is possible to do things and efforts, put in efforts, and you may reach there, because there is a possibility that you are not born with those characteristics, those competencies, but you can learn if you have a mentor, if you have the right set of people, or if you have a level 5 leader who can pull you through, and it's not progress. I mean, this is not a linear progression as well, right? You can be at level 3 and you can become a level 5. So it's not necessary that you have to go step by step every level. So yes, there is possibility, and we should see a lot of level 5 leaders. Guys, and I'm sure, Rajiv, your work will definitely help in this area.
Hopefully, that's the effort that I'm trying to do. Guys, all the young minds and leaders who are listening to Gauri, this is a very, very powerful statement she's making. I think the strive to reach level 4 or level 5 should be intrinsic. It cannot be extrinsic driven. And the first step towards that is please go pick up this book and read it. If you have not picked the book, you have wasted many, many years. If you have picked the book and you have been dusting it on your table for many years, you have wasted many, many years. So just after this conversation, when you hear, pick up the book, read it in one go. I can guarantee you the magic this can do to you as it has done to me and it has done to Gauri here. I'm ready to say this, Gauri.
Absolutely. And one more thing which I really liked about the whole research, that it was not true that compensation was driving these people. Because the data says that they were not very high in comparison to other companies, the competitors. And even these leaders, they were not driven by money, though definitely money and fame would follow if you are a level 5 leader and you have more than 3 times success, right, in comparison to other companies. But the primary motive was not this. Like for Mahatma Gandhi and Abraham Lincoln, we discussed, it was not about money or
It was
gaining that
purpose.
career. But that would definitely follow, because many a times I've seen here for youngsters, especially for them, money becomes a make or break kind of thing, even in earlier stage of the career, which
Hmm.
should not be the case. They should look at what work, what knowledge you would gain
I
from them,
agree. I agree.
and then the money will definitely follow. Because if
Exactly.
you are learning the right things, you will definitely be offered by many more people, many more
Yeah.
organizations to
Yeah.
work with them, to support them, and you will be there. But don't follow money, follow learnings.
So like that 3 days is, follow
Yes.
excellence, success will automatically follow. We can add one more saying, follow excellence, success will automatically follow, and money will definitely follow through.
Yes.
Lovely, lovely. That takes me to the next question, which is very, very, very favorite for me, which is what you also spoke about, openness. So let's kind of expand this for me. He says, a very powerful phrase, he says, a climate where the truth is heard.
Yes.
Jim vociferously mentions and talks about this across many pages, saying, till this is not established, you cannot create that breakthrough out of the black box at all. You're going to be stuck in the black box ever.
Yeah.
How much ever the powerful the product is, it's a unique selling proposition in the market. Great. Your processes can be fabulous. You must have implemented every page of a TQM world. Even then, if that people and that climate of truth is not set in, he says it's impossible. What is your take on this, Gauri?
Yeah, I think it is about culture,
Yeah.
the kind of culture as a leader you are creating, and that flows. It's always top down, right? So if you are somebody who is not very confident about being vulnerable,
Hmm.
you always think that if I show my weakness, what would people think about me? That would become the organization culture. And on the other side, if you are fine to ask, because asking something indicates that there is something which you do not know,
Yeah.
and that also shows that you are human. That
Yeah.
again, it builds the trust, the bond of trust. Today I don't know something, and tomorrow you might not know something, so there is a trust that both of us are a human being, and it
Hmm.
happens to everyone.
Hmm.
So that becomes very important when it comes to designing those cultures.
Hmm.
Like in this book, there is an example of the company called Circuit City,
Hmm.
and the new CEO, Alan, he would ask a lot of questions to board.
Hmm.
Now, whatever board meetings we have heard about, I'm sure Rajiv, you will have similar experience. It's about board asking a lot of questions to CEO and the management team. But this is totally different. And in this case, he's asking a lot of things to the board, and they say he's really a smart and intelligent guy, because he wants to understand what's going on.
Hmm.
So tomorrow, if I don't know something, even in HR,
Hmm.
if I can tell this to my team member, there will be a bond that okay, there are times when I don't know something, and I'm okay to be vulnerable.
True.
So that is one thing. Second, do you allow people to discuss it, or like I said in the beginning, have their say and then you accept whatever has been said by the leadership?
Okay.
So that debate. Now, I have not seen this in my professional career, but the book talks about an organization wherein they debate to such an extent that they yell.
Hmm.
I mean, there's an example cited here wherein two executives will enter the cabin of CEO, and they will talk about these things in a heated manner,
Hmm.
and then come out or emerge as having a consensus will emerge from there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
are you able to do that? Are you able to give that kind of environment, or you just say that okay, I have a listening ear for you,
Hmm.
but when it comes to somebody's opinion which is not aligned with your opinion, you
Hmm.
just ignore it? So
Yeah.
that is the kind of thing. And this company, they were into, it's I'm talking about newcomers, so they were into a different business, a nuclear, I mean, some creating something about these things. But then they moved on to steel and they started focusing on steel. From there on, they started creating their mini mills. So the writer says that they would come together, they will debate, heated debate, they will discuss, move on, discuss, move on. So that creates an environment where you are heard and you are forced to think also.
Right, right.
Because many a times senior executive will just follow what CEO is saying and they bring in nothing new into the table.
True, true.
And there is an example that one of the CEO says, I am unable to recollect the name, but he says that if I hear multiple voices from my management team, there is redundancy and there is a room to cut cost. So that is the kind of I mean, your own uniqueness, your own thoughts, your expertise is what you need to bring to table. But first the environment should be created.
I think, very nicely said, that environment needs to be created, because if that is not created, I think the fear of conflict is there in me so much that I don't want to just unnecessarily get into any conversation, because for me, every conversation I fear would lead into a conflict. I don't want to. I better stay silent. Anyway, I'm here for some time. Make my work, do my work, take my salary, and walk out. That could be the mentality, isn't it? It's so important, right? I'm just thinking that the so-called democratic leadership that we talk about for many, many years now, this climate of allowing truth to be heard becomes very, very important, isn't it? And then how open would leaders be, again, becomes a very important question to ask, that anything any employee says is finally a truth for the benefit of the organization. It's not a question on me.
Yes.
That's such a big paradigm that leaders need to have in their own heads, isn't it? That one needle shift can create a huge impact in organizations.
Yeah, I think it's leading by example also. And the test happens when you have a failure. How do you take this forward? So do you blame others as a leader, or you take it on you that like there's an example in the book also when there's a acquisition of 7 Up and the acquisition fails and they lose a lot of money, and CEO says that I have taken this decision, it is my decision, and I am going to learn the most from the tuition that we have paid for. So it's like whether you are taking out those learnings or you are just blaming somebody, firing somebody and moving forward, then you are not going to learn anything and people will not come forward to you as well.
Absolutely. What a powerful word he used, tuition.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Tell me a little about this 2x2 matrix that he beautifully talks about. On one side, we have this ethics of ownership. On the other side, we have the culture of discipline. And you spoke about discipline, you spoke about culture as well. How do you see these? Because for me, ethics of ownership has always been paramount, Gauri. I mean, it's a non-negotiable. It is that one particular stick that has always helped me sail through those turbulent waters and still reach the bank without getting drowned. And I've seen this multiple times. And I've had my own ups and downs in corporate life. And today I'm an entrepreneur in startup. So for me, this has always been fundamental. How do you see these two together? Ethics of ownership and culture of discipline.
Yeah, so this is very much, I mean, it's a pertinent thing in today's environment, especially. And for me, it's much more closer to my heart because I have worked with multiple startups. And this comes in very heavily when it comes to startups, because there is a kind of entrepreneurship, like you said, now you are doing it on the one side. Okay, so सब कुछ start होता है and business starts, and then promoters are doing everything. They have no delegation. Slowly you scale up, and then things become unmanageable.
Yeah.
One fine day, promoter would say, "ठीक है, चलो professional management ले आते हैं," and you bring in professional management.
Yeah.
They clean up everything, and then they put in processes. You have to fill up this form, you have to do this, you have to follow this process. And the same thing becomes very lengthy because now there is a discipline, right? You are doing something which is having a SOP or a lengthy process, but there is a discipline and you really wanted this mess to be cleared off. And that has been done. But then again, the promoter would think that processes have become very slow. There's bureaucracy. What do I do from this? And
The
your
quickness
client,
is not there anymore.
correct. Yeah, there's no innovation. That's the most important thing. The ownership that has been killed. Now what do we do? And we have seen so many organizations failing at a particular stage, and that's where we say that every level of organization you need different set of skills.
Right.
The one who can start off something maybe will not be able to give a very right momentum. There are
I
exceptions,
agree. I
but
agree.
yeah, we think that the competencies, and people keep learning also. There's somebody who grows along with the organization. That also
Mm,
happens.
mm, mm.
So for me it's like putting the processes in beginning. Don't lose out on these things in a quest to achieve quicker and create a mess there.
Oh, I love
Like,
that. Mm, mm,
so I'm
mm,
sure you must be taking care of these things. And if I talk with my experience, I have created HR department, set up HR department for two organizations. So in beginning, there will be a pressure that you have to hire people, do whatever you want to do. Don't go into processes more. But I strongly believe that if you have right set of people, there will be right thoughts and there will be right actions.
mm,
Right people would eliminate the need of hierarchy.
mm,
You can have a flat organization because everybody is responsible. It's right
mm.
people.
True, true.
Right thoughts will eliminate the need of bureaucracy.
Mm,
And if you have right thought, there will be right actions. And again, you don't need anybody to control anything.
mm, mm,
So,
mm,
and that's how these days things are going on. A lot of organizations are going flat
mm,
because you really don't need people to manage people to such an extent that there's someone who's only managing people. That is of no use.
mm,
So yes, the book gives a great insight about how to take these things forward so that innovation remains
mm.
and you have the discipline of people, action, and thoughts as well.
Yeah. Give me one example of how did you do this in your HR function? Can you think of any one example?
Yeah. So, for example, when you start creating policies,
Mm,
that would not be the first thing that your CEO would ask you when
mm.
you are building up the organization.
True.
So then what will happen, and it has happened also with me, that
Mm,
there will not be any procedures because you are working on thousand other things as a
mm.
startup,
Correct.
and you have no time to put in place those procedures or policies. Now they look like an evil, but they are necessary evil,
Mm,
because what happens then, you have no criteria for anything. Everything is being done as per CEO or I mean promoters thought processes, whatever
mm,
they bring to table.
mm,
And slowly as you grow, then people start resenting these things. And
mm,
like the book says, there will be wrong people on the bus and they will push down the right people.
mm.
Why do we create policies? Policies are only for a very small percentage of people who
Mm.
do not follow it in the
I agree.
first place. And that's where you need to put those controls. So if you have the right people and right procedures since beginning, you would not be in this position. So like I said, there were no policies. And then after 3 4 years, we realized that things are not going good. People started complaining that when it comes to performance appraisals, there is no criteria. How do you decide? It's all about you choosing somebody or promoters choosing somebody. And then we started losing some of them, but
Okay.
we were fortunate enough to open our eyes very quickly and
Mhm.
then putting in place these right things. So
Mm.
experiment, yes, I failed multiple times during this experiment, but I learned like tuition.
True, true, like tuition. I like the one that you said, Gauri. There's a very nice perspective that policies are for people who do not follow it. People who anyway follow it
Yeah, we don't need.
to the T. I don't think they need a policy document because they believe in that as a value.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. I remember my experience with a learning organization where I was leading learning and development for the domestic and international business of TVS Motor Company for India,
Okay.
around 12,000 employees, which included the organization OEM, then the extended family of dealerships and extended distributors in the Africa and Indonesia market. Quite a
Okay.
good,
So cultural diversity as well.
quite a good experience I had there.
Great.
What I loved is once we enter the plant, Gauri, there were zebra crossings. People would just go there, stand there, and follow those and cross roads. In a plant, there is no 40-50 kilometer per hour wala gaadi aa raha hai. You still, it's an empty bloody plant. There's human beings walking to their respective blocks. That's all. But they would still follow it diligently without being told by anyone. So it was so beautifully ingrained in them. I was like, this is very, very powerful for me because I entered a manufacturing first time from a multinational organization. This was an Indian organization. And for me,
Okay.
total quality management processes first time being supreme for success of an organization. This is great. So what you're saying is so right, right? The culture of discipline was so beautifully uh, driven. May not be danda leke, but kaise kiye mujhe nahi pata. Yes,
The
100,
right set of the people on the bus.
maybe 100 plus years of organization, 120 years old the company is, right? A fourth generation of owners running the company. And the ethics of ownership was so much कि I would follow it. इसमें सबसे बढ़िया क्या था, हम लोग अंदर follow करते थे तो बाहर जाके भी would follow it saying, yeah Rajiv, you are a TVS employee. How can you not follow rules? You are a TVS employee. How can you break a signal? You are a TVS employee. How can you not take the zebra crossing? I was like, shit, that TVS employee of mine is driving me so much outside the factory also in terms of living ethics. And I could feel that
Yeah,
was
and that's what, yes, an excellent observation. And that's what we see when it is top down, then it's, I mean, imbibed by people so easily. But even at the lowest level, people should have some reasoning, some thought why they are doing it, because why becomes very important. After we have the right who, why also is equally
I
important.
agree. I agree. Super. That takes me to the last but one question, and I'm conscious of the time. So I want to ask you the last question. With all this experience you have, Gauri, of working with startups plus also an organization now leading the HR function, what are two razor sharp advices that you would give to the young minds who are also in their own journey of reaching a quick growth? They are in their own journey of reaching leadership roles and contributing back to organizations. All of us are aspirational, right? Some of theirs would meet the aspirations, some of them may not be able to meet their aspirations, whatever be their journey. But what could be some common two razor sharp advices from
I think one would be, which I have also lived by and I try to do it all the time, is learning agility.
you? Right.
That is something we can't, I mean, we can never overlook, because every day things are changing.
Hmm.
So when I was hiring 3 years ago, the skills that I was looking at, the competencies that I was looking at were totally different from today.
Hmm.
Post COVID, resilience has become one of the most important
Yeah,
competencies.
yeah.
So I would dig deeper. I will try to find out how resilient the person is from various sources, right? Because that has become an important characteristic. So this is one thing which we have to continuously do. Like I mentioned, I just did my design thinking certification. 5 years ago, I never thought that there would be some requirement in HR role to do
Hmm.
this. Continuous learning. I did my psychology masters in 2019, which
Hmm.
was 13 years of experience at that point of time. And my mom was like, "Kitna padhogi? Main to padhti rahogi." But that's important, because without that, you cannot grow in your career. You cannot actually know what's going on. So one thing is through certifications, learning, and another being active,
Hmm.
so that you know what's going on in market. So that is one advice which I would give.
Learning agility.
Learning agility. And second would come from the book, because I said it's very close to my values, and which is a respect for everybody, that personal humility, no matter what level you are at, because people always remember how you made them feel.
Hmm.
And no matter how much we think we will be able to do everything on our own, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है.
बिल्कुल.
Everybody is dependent, and the quicker we understand this, we bring it. And how would you do that? I think self awareness is the key here.
Yeah.
पहले हमें पता होना चाहिए at what level we are, and then we bring in those elements. So just stick to your values and keep evaluating your values also, because sometimes misalignment होता है. If my value is money at beginning of my career, I think it's misaligned.
I agree. I
So
agree.
look at your value and live up to them. So these would be two
Wonderful.
advice.
Thank you so much. That was very powerful. And second one was very, very powerful. Thank you so much for that, because I also keep telling people with an example saying, when you watch an Iron Man movie, he does great stuff. When you go and watch an Ant-Man movie, he does great. You go and watch a Wonder Woman, she does great stuff as individual superheroes. But when they come together in Avengers to save the world, they have to come together as their own strengths and finally save the world.
Correct.
An Iron Man would need a Captain America. Captain America needs a Wonder Woman. A Wonder Woman needs an Ant-Man together. सब मिलके ही they save the entire world.
Brilliant example, brilliant. Because ये जितना जल्दी समझ आ जाए. And when I was very young, I used to think कि अरे मुझे क्या जरूरत है किसी की. But now at this level, I fully understand. Without people, कुछ नहीं होने वाला है.
I know, I agree.
Yeah.
Lovely. That was so good.
Great.
Thank you so much, Gauri, for coming onto this event, talking about this beautiful book. So calm and composed way of articulating. I just love the way you did that. I thoroughly enjoyed this 45 minutes of conversation with you. I hope you had a good time.
Same here, Rajiv. And I loved your examples and learned also some of the things that you mentioned. I'm going to implement, especially the zebra crossing thing that you shared. I'm going to cite this as an example in my one of the meetings that देखो ऐसा भी होता है. We can also do it as senior management.
Please do. Please do.
Thank you so much. मजा आ गया.
It was a lovely, lovely conversation. I look forward to meeting you sometime when the travel starts up. I think things are opening up. That time, let's talk. Yeah.
Great. Looking forward.
Same here. Bye. You have a lovely rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Pleasure.